So this time we're going to focus on a slightly, I don't want to say easier topic, but a topic that might be a little more easy for everybody to grasp and to answer. And that is another question from utilizing AI, which is, can you think of an application for artificial intelligence technology that we haven't really seen yet, but that will have a major impact in the future? So I will throw this out there to anyone who wants to jump in.
To be honest, I think AI will get in most places. I'm thinking maybe there's a lot of focus in the B2C area, so what we can deliver to consumers. I know there's a lot of focus in the B2B environment, but I believe there's not so much talk about the B2B environment as there is about the B2C. So there could be an opportunity there for that. The example I gave earlier about writing, for example, there's a lot of AIs that can do writing pretty well, but it depends on how technical and then how jargon filled the content has to be. For example, writing in legalese or technical terms might be something that could be pretty far away at the moment, but at the same time, we might just see AI that does maybe 90% of the writing, and then humans just do a bit of editing.
All right, so using AI to assist writing and editing. Who else has a suggestion? Where are we going with this technology, Ray?
Yeah, I would like to see AI help with learning. So today, there's a lot of material around, a lot of books. But when I read a book, maybe sometimes I might see 60% new content, maybe 30% new content. Would be nice if AI would help me to pick out the right books or the right material and help me gauge and push me to books that are more at my level and where I could learn more. For example, it's a time saver, but I think education nowadays is a lot more important for people considering the working from home. There's a lot of less interaction with human beings. And I think it would be nice if AI could help us with learning a much faster pace.
It'd be interesting to have an AI solution. It's more of a robotics plus AI that could potentially go into the ocean and mine for, hazardous materials or stuff that we as a society and manufacturing entity need to further our technology and that sort of stuff. I mean, the problem with the deep ocean is that, at those pressures and it's just not possible to have humans in that space anymore. So you want to have some sort of a robotic thing to do this, but I mean, it's all teleoperated, which means it's you have to communicate back and forth, which is difficult. So you have that. That's one. The second one is something that I've often thought, if we just had some sort of a robotic device that we could let loose on a garbage mound and have it go through and recycle all the aluminum, all the steel, all the glass, all the electronics, and just go through that and just take out all the stuff that's non-combustible or whatever, and you have a gold mine effectively. So that's the second thing.
Isn't that WALL-E?
Yeah.
It's kind of WALL-E, but WALL-E was just putting stuff together into big mounds. He was not actually doing anything with it. So the third thing is, I think we should have a device. Again, it's a combined robotic AI device that we can send into space and have it salvage satellites or ISS or other vast space architecture that exists today, which took an awful lot of money to propel into space and to build. And over time, it's going to go out of life. But that componentry and at least the structural components, not let alone some electronics and some of the physical componentry can be reused in space without having to send that stuff up again. Those are my three for today.
Yeah, I mean, the final one, it's when we actually had the space shuttle, we did send it up with people in it to go reclaim satellites that would potentially
fix the Hubble, that sort of
thing. Yeah, do that type of thing. And I mean, I certainly think that we could do something like that would be an automated, self-thinking craft that could do that type of thing. But it would have to be that kind of size, that kind of scale. And I think that was one of the issues with the space shuttle, is that it was very large and very expensive to operate. I mean, if you actually want to recover these things, you need something. I'm
thinking of a swarm of CubeSats you could send out and have it go and dismantle the space station.
I'll throw one out there that came up during the Utilizing AI podcast, and that is the idea that AI could assist people who have sensory and motor challenges, because a lot of people have trouble. Well, basically, think of the 5 senses. People have trouble with any of those senses. Think of different mobility challenges and so on. Well, guess what? AI systems can actually be programmed to do things like smell and taste and see and hear, and assist people who otherwise couldn't be able to do those things. And I think that's actually a very positive use of this technology, and one that's coming quickly.
Actually, you could come up with like an AI solution that would actually use laser pointers to do things like herd cats.
An AI cat herder. There we go. You heard it here first, folks.
And I'm going to add that to my litter robot, right, that I already have. Like, related to that, so something I've been thinking and doing some reading and some interacting with people about is, how do we get more empathy in IT? And people misunderstand the word empathy. They think it means sadness or sympathy or something, and it really means something completely different around being able to adjust how you interact and how you design systems, being empathetic with all classes of people. Because as Justin has pointed out on Twitter, and many of us have talked about in the past, we IT people kind of live in a bubble where we always have broadband, we always have computers, we always have green screens, we always have everything. And we don't always feel empathy for people who don't have the same things that we do or the same experiences. I'd love to see some sort of use of AI that includes all the disciplines of AI bring together to help us bridge this huge empathy gap. And I'm not sure what that would be. It might be, instead of driving assistance, conversational assistance, or it might be review of systems that have features or interactions that aren't empathetic with a greater class of people. So I realize that's a really airy kind of thing, but that would make my heart happy if we could use AI to help us be more empathetic in building and designing things.
If even just on the governance of stuff, like things we know works because the people who are affected have told us. So things like, okay, you're building a computer game and the system will automatically add in various color blindness adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And sensory adjustments. So for people who are have photosensitive epilepsy, that it will automatically detect that, hey, you've built a game that has that. Okay, maybe it's necessary for a certain storytelling element for artistic reasons, but it will automatically adjust those parts if for someone who can just say, I have this, I want to engage with your art, but this causes me a problem. So we can have a way that it will automatically do that. So you kind of, it's an empathy assistance. So EI would be quite handy.
Yeah, the example I used the other day, there were 2 of them. One, I want people who design women's clothing to know that 99% of women want pockets in their clothing, and we don't care that it might destroy the line of our pants or our dress. And we've said that, we've been vocal. There's thousands of memes about it. There are people who put it in their bios, and we still can't make that happen. And people say, well, vote with your dollars, but you literally can't buy them. I mean, there's just a few places that automatically add pockets like they do for men's clothing. And the other one was, to let airport washroom designers know that people in airports have luggage and kids with them, and to get into a stall, they need more room than the traditional standard for bathroom stalls. Something that could assist people and remind them to have empathy for design, even though we've always done it that way, would be great. And I don't care if it delivers an electric nudge to them, or if it rejects their designs, or it automatically calculates how much money they're going to lose because they're not doing this. So forced empathy, maybe.
Another use case for AI that's just around the corner, potentially. Right now, wind turbines, the offshore, not particularly controversial, but where you place them, AI can help us get better at that to make them more efficient. But how about AI used to design a better wind turbine that gets more power out of your dollars spent? So I was actually listening to a podcast about this very topic this morning, just the transition to sustainable energy and how AI can help it. So yeah, that's the kind of podcast I listen to, it's about a YouTuber. But anyhow, that's just another area where I see some reason for optimism. You think about an airplane wing design, any number of things like that. But I like the engineering aspects. To me, that I find that intriguing. Right? Can we make better stuff than humans ever could concoct in the past? Just throwing that out there.
And we heard that as well on the Utilizing AI podcast as well, with pain management and medical diagnostics and things like that, where they were saying that, you know, AI can definitely do a better job than humans.
I think an area which interests me on where AI might go is the completely, I guess, self-driving IT operations management. I think this is a really interesting one because it's, I think it's somewhere where it could almost go today, but we're not willing to accept it. And I wonder whether a lot of AI is going to be in that goal. So at the moment, there's IT systems which can open a trouble ticket because it's detected a problem. It can maybe bounce ports, reboot network equipment or devices or storage. But going much beyond that is a lot of systems can do it. They can detect problems. They can give you, so an example I may talk about is that there's determined that there's an issue on your system. And if you updated your firmware, let's say on your network switches, it would fix the issue. We can tell by looking at other customers who've updated, we've seen, but actually going as far as doing the remediation automatically. It can tell you, and that's a big step, because the whole way we have systems set up today is that, well, first of all, you're going to stage that, we're going to test it, we want to make sure it works for our devices. We need to raise change controls. What we're not going to do is just let a system automatically make changes to my network, to my system. And I wonder, when will we be ready to make that step, to trust AI enough that we'll actually go, okay, I don't just want you to detect issues, but actually I want you to, and tell me what I need to do, but actually do the change, because we know it will be better. And I think that's an interesting area that I know a lot of, at least in the networking world where I live, really, a lot of the vendors feel they're almost at that stage, but they're holding back rolling out because they say they can't get the buy-in from the customers to actually roll it out. But
there's a few AI ops solutions that are looking to do that, and they actually want to give you thresholds to let you, if there's small jobs, you go ahead and automate them. If not, just raise them as an alert or something like that, and you can adjust the threshold depending on how much trust you have in the system and how much it actually learned from your network or such.
And the same technology could be used in all sorts of other areas outside of IT. You know, it occurs to me there's been so much during the pandemic. There was so much unemployment fraud and fraud against the government and support systems and so on. And I would imagine that a very similar solution could detect outliers and that sort of thing. Yeah, like in IT.
And I think they do. These systems outside of IT that detect these things, and there's a lot of detection going on, but there's not the remediation or the automatic action that's happening. And sometimes those actions never get taken. So I think that's going to be an interesting place where AI will go when we start talking about remediation and actually performing actions based upon the output of algorithms.
So on a completely different topic, I think one of the things that you could potentially use AI for would be a modification of the traveling salesman problem, where there's all sorts of transportation resources that are currently just moving around empty because they need to get from one place to another to be able to do something. But it seems to me that you could actually have some way of actually tracking where these resources are and make best use of them to make sure that they were always carrying a load when they could. And I mean, this goes into the supply chain issues right now, where they have containers sitting around because they can't get empty trucks there to pick them up, and yet there's there are trucks running around. And I think that we could do this with trucking, with train resources, with airplanes, with whatever type of cargo transportation that's out there, making the best use of making sure that it's used as heavily as possible. A friend of mine and I once talked about an idea of actually cataloging all the railroad rolling stock in the US, and having it basically have a brokerage system that would allow you to say, I need a box car to carry this type of stuff. Where is one locally that's not in use that I can use? Rather than saying, oh, I need to call this railroad to get a box car here that I can fill up.
It's funny though, it seems like logistics is one area that has gotten worse, not better, considering the number of times the Amazon truck rolls up to my house on a given day. You'd think that Amazon would be applying some sort of logic to the problem, but they don't seem to be.
Well, that's Amazon. What do you expect?
Yeah, I think there's some of that is because things are coming from different warehouses, and actually it would actually take more effort to combine all the elements you want into one truck than it would actually to send. So actually it may look like they're not doing algorithms, but maybe they've actually worked out it's better to send 5 trucks than one.
True.
And because I do a bit of work in sort of retail and warehousing, and it's really interesting. Actually, I think they're quite ahead of the game in a lot. They've been doing location algorithms to work out, for example, forklift trucks activities in warehouse, tracking them to make sure that they're sending the right picking jobs to a forklift truck at the right end of the warehouse, as opposed to getting them to cross each other. So you don't send a picking job to this person if you know its location. The driver to the other side of the warehouse picks something you know based on the location, and you optimize workflows and optimizing pick race. And they've been doing this sort of stuff for many years. Well, yes. But it's just, I think the output often looks crazy because we say why is it send 5 trucks? Why do not put those in the same packaging? Actually, some of the reasons for doing that is because they've realized it's cheaper and better not to. Mm-hmm. And that maybe brings up bigger issues, but that's often the reason.
Well, I think part of it might be that just Stephen's too impatient to actually wait for things to actually get centralized. But I mean, this is, it's in computer science is known as the elevator algorithm, where basically you attempt to group things together that are going to happen in sequence appropriately rather than jump all over the place. And it comes from the idea that elevators typically, don't just go floor to floor. They typically will go try to make as long a run as possible.
But on that point too, I think that one of the things that AI is teaching us is that sometimes things that seem intuitive to humans are actually not the optimal solution. Yes. And so whether it's the traveling salesman problem or elevators or even the trolley problem, I think that we may be surprised at what a artificial intelligence system may come up with as an answer to the problem. We may not like it. It may gall us, but it may be actually the correct solution. So I want to hear from anybody else. What other ideas do you have for where we'll see AI in the future?
I got a simple one. Maybe it's simple, maybe not. Look at Zoom. This is we've got all of us remotely where we self-identify. We know our names. The people at Prime Image, where robotic cameras panning to who's talking, like Stephen just spoke, it'll quickly shoot over to guy wearing Splunk shirt, right? Not really AI if, say, the meeting setup person just said, okay, I found all the robotic positions in the room, let me label them. But wouldn't it be better if Zoom software just figured out, based on the voice print of the people talking, offered, 10 minutes in after 4 or 5 people have talked, person leading at the Prime Image Zoom site there could just kind of right-click on the 4 faces and say, here's those 4 people's names. Boom. So that's just kind of a practical thing, right? I could just imagine AI, since we all work remotely, we're smart, and Zoom could be a lot smarter. Wouldn't it be cool if we could actually see the name of the person speaking that's there in California? Simple little thing, but it just doesn't exist today that I see. It's not, it's the voice, it's the face. It could be a combination of those attributes. It doesn't need to be creepy. It could just be camera position, voice, and how they're in their shirt color or something. And then you could just nail it. And then the whole rest of the week, we know exactly who the camera's panning to and who's speaking at any time. Just a silly little thought, because
well, I will tell you just on a meta note that we've tried a lot of those systems and they don't work worth a darn. So we've got Rachel
there you go
back there moving the camera.
Yeah. Yep.
But maybe they'll work better in the future.
But you did ask for future stuff that doesn't work now and maybe could. Seems like that could happen.
I have a snarky one again. Like one of the weird things about tax returns in the US is virtually nothing is prepared for you like it is in other countries in the world. You start from scratch with everything the government already knows about you. You have to collect and submit and do all the math, right? So what if these onerous forms, whether it was a tax return, an immigration visa application, or any of those things, what if we were able to leverage not just collecting data, but true AI-like things to try to give you a draft return, tell you, have all the traceability of where did it guess that you currently live here? Where did it get this address of your current employer? And try to assist humans in preparing these data submissions to the authorities that the authorities have designed a process, because that's always the way we did it, to help assist people in not having to give the government information that we have already given them, and also to prepare it based on your previous returns. Like every year, my US return, which is really simple, involves basically starting with last year's and modifying a few rows. Like, what if the system already did that? Because we know the government already has all this data, because all the forms that they sent me, that my employers or clients sent me, also were sent to the government. Like, I realize that the big thing about having all the things I want AI to do also requires me to give up a whole bunch of privacy, but so does Amazon. So I'm willing to have some assistance for people who literally overpay their taxes because they don't understand the system, or underpay them and then are harmed with fees and fines and maybe even jail time.
I got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to me to create an AI system that could go out to the internet and extract all the data that I've ever generated that I didn't actually want to generate. So go into Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and extract all the information attached to me so that I could be completely anonymous in this internet world.
Or at least know what that information is.
Yeah,
and where it is.
if I knew what was there and I could, somehow correlate it or correct it or govern it, that would be one thing. But at this point, it's gotten to the point where I can't even speak in public without something tracking that information and starting to trigger ads to me from that perspective. So I would like to have some mechanism, AI or whatever, that could go out and erase my existence from the internet, if that's what I wanted to do.
Or help you do that, at least.
Or some portion there.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm actually going to throw another one out there that gets dangerously close to self-driving, but actually feeds off one of the things Ray said. I absolutely expect that we are going to have autonomous space vehicles sooner than we'll have autonomous big rig trucks on the highways. In other words, I think that there's a need for some way to have a very simple, even autonomous capability in the next Mars rover, the next, planetary mission, so that when it's out of connection with the Earth, it can continue.
I think it already works that way.
Yeah. There we go. Give me another one then.
I'll give you another one that's, I think, come in and starting to happen with smartwatches monitoring people's heart rate, but automatic diagnosis of problems without needing to go and see a doctor or medical. So especially if you start looking at serious medical conditions which need to be detected early. I think that's an area of AI which I think could potentially be really useful in the future.
That's actually already there.
Which doesn't mean sharing your data. It means it's alerting you that you should go and see a doctor. And I think that's a potentially it could be life-saving for people.
We had a suggestion here of another idea would be empathetic AI that monitors your work and spots signs of depression.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
And all your home assistant devices, and I have read futuristic things about your Alexa might realize that, they even have these apps now, for elderly parents, that their assistants can monitor, did their parent get up that morning? Did they turn on the lights? Did they make their tea? Also, how often they're using the washroom? Are they showering? Again, someone would have to give up their privacy in return for this extra stuff. But I find that really a good use of AI to be able to do that, if you're willing to hand over your privacy again.
Yeah, so just on that, I happen to know something about that particular one. There's a similar solution to that, but it doesn't require any privacy, giving up privacy or even AI. It's a simple one where I think it's a kettle where you plug it into your kettle, and because their mother always makes a cup of tea in the morning, so if by a certain time kettle hasn't been activated, it sends a message to the carer, and then they can just ring the person and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And then they can say, "Oh no, it's okay. I didn't put the thing." So that actually puts the control in the hands of the person. So a lot of what people are talking about here is actually taking the autonomy and control away from them and putting it in charge of this benevolent overlord AI, which called. So this is an example of where there's actually a much simpler solution to the same problem that doesn't involve AI at all, which makes it more robust. So maybe we should just do that.
But that only tests one data point, and the examples I were given were a matrix, so that, maybe that day it was really hot, so they didn't put on the kettle and they had ice water for breakfast or milk or juice. I mean, I'm talking about so that, yes, it's data collected to you about your day, but it includes, did they go to the washroom? Did they shower? Did they get out of bed and move? And again, there's going to be a lot of people who are uncomfortable with that, but I'm really thinking that's how I'm going to live. I'm willing to hand that data over. And if they use it to target toilet paper sales to me, perfect. And I'm fine with that.
There's loads of really great systems for doing that as well. I've been playing about with quite a lot of IoT kit recently, and Ocean do its energy harvested IoT sensors. So there's no battery power to them. And so one of the multi-sensors can detect vibrations, for example. So you can put it on a bed and it will know if someone's in the bed, if they've got up or not, if they're moving, they're not moving. And then you've got lighting sensors, temperature sensors. And because some of them need battery, because they take the energy from the vibrations or the light they're sensing or to send a message, it's a really cheap and easy way of putting sensors around people's homes. So it's so achievable that it's not just a concept that might happen in the future. It's actually really achievable today.
And you've literally just described how I'm monitoring my cats while I'm away on this trip. Cameras, vibration, motion, and how much food they've eaten. I know this.
I will point out too that one of the nice features of some of the things that I'm seeing being developed, there's a lot of dystopian overtones to some of these things, but I'm going to counter that by saying that one of the trends that I'm seeing right now is the proliferation of low-powered, high-capability machine learning engines that can do this autonomously without cloud, without sharing your data. So, for example, when we installed a doorbell, one of those magical doorbells at the office, I specifically selected one that is not cloud connected, where the entire processing happens in the device itself. The storage is in the device. Everything is local. Nothing is sent out to the world. And I think that that's becoming increasingly popular as well, or possible as well. And we could be in a situation where we are able to counter some of the dystopian overtones of the cloud using distributed and contained systems that have these algorithms implemented in them locally.
I think also it's becoming easy to develop these systems as well. A friend of mine, give a shout out to Nick Turner, he's developed a little AI system in his house he's got one of these automatic cat flaps that you can open. What he was finding, so you can automatically lock it so the cat can't get in, but normally it detects it with the collar. He was finding that the cat was bringing in mice all the time and rats. And so he installed a camera on the cat flap and started collecting images every time the cat came up, and he put them through an AI learning algorithm to detect, has it got something in its mouth or not? And if it's got something in the mouth, it keeps locked. Otherwise, it unlocks it. Really simple. And he said he was really surprised at how few pictures he needed to train the model. And it works perfect for him. So now he's got a system where it doesn't let the cat in, it detects something in the mouth. And that's running on just a small, I think, Raspberry Pi.
And another nice thing about these things, these distributed systems that are not cloud connected, is that people can opt out of them. You don't have to use it. And it's not automatically collecting all your data in sort of a panopticon kind of way. If you decide that I want a cat flap that'll detect if my cat is here, and if all the processing is local, it happens right there. And I think that that's an exciting aspect of some of the chips that we're seeing, that they could make that possible.
Yeah, real quick, a footnote to what Karen was saying for monitoring, say showers. Doesn't need to be creepy. There's something called EcoNet, an app I'm using to look at my Wi-Fi connected water heater for the last 3 years. You could basically figure out a little bit of AI, what a shower looks like, right? So just adding that little footnote. Thank you, Stephen. But yeah, IoT, there's some promise there. The trouble is the cloud, like what happens when they suspend service. And why would Ream, who makes the water heater, care to have an API that's open so that it could help in Karen's situation? Those are their business challenges. Or something like Smart Home, where they just pulled the plug in their cloud after 9 years, and I have a lot of their devices in my home. There's some challenges. Insteon is what I'm talking about there. So those are always the challenges, anything cloud. It started as a local only product, it became cloud, and then they pulled the plug in the cloud.
Yeah.
So as Stephen said, his doorbell, it was local, but in my case, Insteon was local when I got it 9 years ago. They decided to go cloud and then kind of hurt things. So my devices still work, I just can't reprogram them and change the sunset and sunrise and all that.